Welcome back here to Pico Rivera, California, to Psycho Turtle Collectibles. I'm Dennis Geisler. With me, a Pikachu, a Mimikyu, and an Ogerpon. Very exciting crew that we have here. And we're getting into round number 2 of our league challenge. Again, 4 rounds of Swiss. Both these players at 0-1, so another loss most likely to knock them out of this tournament here. Our two competitors, we have Oscar with the Whimsicott, the Chien-Pao, the Galarian Weezing, the Rillaboom, and the Hisuian Arcanine with the Zamazenta, Terragrass, Dauntless Shield, Rusted Shield, with Protect, Heavy Slam, Body Press, and Wide Guard. And then on Lucy's side, it is the Iron Hands, the Ogerpon Wellspring, the Tauros, the Paldean Blaze Form, Landorus Incarnate, and Whimsicott with Miraidon, Terra Fairy, Hadron Engine, Choice Specs with Draco Meteor, Dazzling Gleam, Electro Drift, and Volt Switch. Most interesting here is that Galarian Weezing. It has so many ways to... It does so much. There's so many strange things that it's able to accomplish with instantly shutting down abilities as well as instantly turning back on. I was talking to Oscar beforehand about being able to switch in and out Weezing to recycle, like to do Intimidate multiple times. I think you might actually do it right now. Oscar leading the Arcanine and the Weezing, Lucy leading the Landorus and the Whimsicott. Of course, no abilities are in play right now, so that means Prankster is not active for Whimsicott. I still think it's the fastest thing on the field, but means it doesn't get priority on anything right now. It also means the Sheer Force isn't active, so Landorus will do a bit less damage and will take the recoil damage from Life Orb. Does have the ability now to actually land its secondary effects. Squeezing is pretty defensive, all things considered. Arcanine going to be the one to switch out. It is banded, locked into whatever move it decides to pick. Whimsicott switches in, so two pranksterless Whimsicotts hanging out. And even without Prankster, that Whimsicott will get the Tailwind up. And Weezing will land a big Acid Spray onto the Whimsicott. Again, not a huge damage move, but does some pretty nice damage there against the quadruple effectiveness. Quadruple weak target, I guess, in Whimsicott. Covert Cloak is why the secondary effect didn't activate, in case you are curious. Now the Tailwind active on Lucy's side. And this is not a Levitate Weezing, it is a Weezing that's weak to ground, so that is why it will change that. Terra Grass on the Weezing. Got leftovers with Taunt, Protect, Will-O-Wisp, and Acid Spray. Moonblast launched on the other Whimsicott. It was a little under half. About a third done to the Weezing there. And of course, the chip damage in return. Tailwind goes up on Oscar's side as well, so the Tailwinds are now matched. And the Weezing will finish off the Whimsicott with the Acid Spray. So good first couple of turns for Oscar, in a pretty nice position if the end game clears up well. See what Lucy decides to bring in here. Can be the Ogerpon Wellspring. Have the Water Absorb turned off, not that it matters in this matchup. That's the interesting thing about this Whimsicott here, depending on the amount of investment into speed. Of course, Whimsicott doesn't necessarily need speed investment because it does have that Prankster, but a lot of them invest pretty heavily, and Whimsicott's a pretty fast Pokemon in the first place, so even without Prankster, it's pretty often the fastest thing on the field. I believe that Ogerpon will not get +1 special defense right here. Indeed, it does not, even though it Terrastalized, because it does not get the Embody Aspect boost. Whimsicott will Encore it into Follow Me. It actually Follow Me stayed priority. And so it actually went out first, and that meant that the Encore could not go down onto the Landorus, which meant that it was able to get the Sludge Bomb down onto the Weezing, finishing it off and turning off neutralizing gas, which will now give the Embody Aspect boost to Ogerpon. And interestingly, I think it turned off neutralizing gas before Life Orb was able to activate, so a little bit of extra HP that Landorus is able to keep. Rillaboom swaps in now. This is Assault Vest Rillaboom. Fake out Grassy Glide, Woodhammer, U-turn. Of course, can open with a Fake Out to slow something down, and then it's a question. I mean, it does pretty good damage to both of these Pokemon. Woodhammer should be a one-hit knockout onto Ogerpon, to be totally honest. It's at least pretty close, and Woodhammer might honestly knock out Landorus as well. Both those Pokemon moderately bulky, but still take pretty good damage against Woodhammer. Ogerpon will be the one to switch out, so we'll see Lucy's last Pokemon. Could be the Miraidon, most likely. It is indeed Miraidon. I took a minute and then I was like, wait, I can read that. It just says Miraidon. Fake out onto the Landorus, so no downside of getting the Miraidon in, except it takes a huge Moonblast. Landorus flinches, and the Tailwind on Lucy's side is down, so actually a pretty dangerous spot for Lucy to be in. The Miraidon is very likely to drop next turn. Lucy's team just slower. I don't know what you do. I think Miraidon just drops unless you switch it out here, as it will certainly be slower than this Whimsicott. I think. Yeah, the Moonblast comes through and Miraidon drops. Whimsicott with a big KO onto Miraidon there, and that should mean that Oscar's going to be able to pick up this first game. Woodhammer onto the Landorus. This should be some good damage here. Ooh, so close to knocking it out. Not going to get there. Landorus will go for the Sludge Bomb the other direction. Doesn't knock out the Rillaboom. Barely not enough, and Tailwind peters out, but Tailwind will be able to be brought back up on Oscar's side with another Tailwind from the Whimsicott now, which should lock up the game. There is... not sure what Lucy will be able to accomplish here. At this point, it's gonna be difficult to figure out a way back into this one. There is the Whimsicott Tailwind. Rillaboom will go for the U-turn out on a Landorus. We'll pick up that last couple bits of HP. Leave it just with Ogerpon remaining. It also means that the grassy terrain can go back up for Rillaboom if it wants. On a switch back in at some point. Weezing's down. Oh yeah, actually no, it's a dicier endgame than I had thought, mostly because, yeah, there is no restricted that Oscar brought here. No Zamazenta. Ivy Cudgel coming out from Ogerpon. It is at -1, and it's launched into the Whimsicott. We'll pick up the KO on the critical hit. I was gonna say, that didn't feel like it should KO without a crit, and that's why it didn't. Well, maybe it didn't. But regardless, Rillaboom comes back in now, and a Woodhammer should seal this one up. Especially combined with whatever Arcanine decides to launch out there. Head Smash or a Flare Blitz, mayhaps. Ogerpon will Spiky Shield. Believe that Head Smash is contact, but Woodhammer is not. Oh, it's going for a Fake Out, so it does take a little bit of damage back. I don't think this will knock out the Rillaboom. Close, but not enough. Head Smash as well. They'll do a bit of recoil back, but ultimately it's a question of whether the Woodhammer is going to be able to pick up the KO. Or potentially going for the Grassy Glide instead. Get a little dicey. Rillaboom with the Grassy Glide into the Ogerpon. Good damage, not enough to knock out. Head Smash. Does this close it out? Yes, it does, and Oscar with Game 1 victory. And we got to see a bit of the a bit of the juice that neutralizing gas Weezing can bring to the table. Although at the end of the day, it was just nice positioning, and particularly I think that read on the Whimsicott Moonblast was pretty significant, especially on the turn that it was, as it meant that Whimsicott got a free big Moonblast onto Miraidon, and then was able to get one more off in the offset Tailwind turn. We'll see if Lucy decides to switch things up here. Saw last time that Whimsicott dropping to 2 Acid Sprays from Galarian Weezing. Obviously, that did not go particularly well for Lucy, so I'd see a bit of a switch up here. Of course, Oscar did not bring the restricted Zamazenta last time. That's always a nice thing to have around. Also, the Chien-Pao Arcanine is an option. Arcanine, not the same level of power as the Dragonite, but still has the extreme speed, still has Choice Band, still does some good damage here. Gotta drink some water. Casting alone, need some water sometimes. And again, we'll see what the Weezing, the effect of the Weezing could be here in this matchup. It tends to be a bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Dynamic, I guess, when it switches in and out more. The Weezing does, as it ends up creating a lot more, I don't know how to put it, externalities, like Embody Aspect proccing multiple times, Intimidate going up multiple times, a lot of strange effects that you can create from the combination of Weezing going in and out with all the other Pokemon on the field. Of course, that means you're wasting turns switching. In any case, game number 2, Oscar up 1-0. Both these players at 0-1. Oscar going to be leading the Weezing and the Arcanine. On Lucy's side, the Tauros and the Miraidon. Remember, neutralizing gas going to cut off Hadron Engine, so no electric terrain and no boost for the Miraidon in electric terrain. And it also means the Tauros isn't able to get Intimidate off onto this Arcanine. So we'll see now what the choice is. The Instant Terra. I believe that's on Lucy's side. We will Terra the Tauros. Is Terra Dragon. Raging Bull, Close Combat, Will-O-Wisp, Protect. With Rocky Helmet. Nice physical check in a lot of ways. And then the Terra in the other direction onto the Arcanine. It's Terra Ghost, which does mean it can be Will-O-Wisp now by the Tauros, if Lucy read that well enough. But the Head Smash do some big damage. Weezing's going to Protect, keep itself around as the neutralizing gas bot. Miraidon going to Volt Switch out on the Arcanine, does successfully get out of there. See what switches in here. Could be a pretty big turn for Lucy if he picks right in this matchup. It's going to be the Iron Hands. Tauros with the Raging Bull into the Weezing. Probably would have knocked out the Arcanine if it was a double, but instead Arcanine will get a Head Smash off onto the Iron Hands, but that's a physically bulky guy. And Iron Hands will absolutely take that hit just fine. Now Arcanine in a pretty dangerous spot. Might just have to switch out of here to stick around in this battle, because you don't want to lose your Terra and one of your Pokemon for that little, but difficult spot to be in. Weezing not in a super dangerous spot itself. Could be pretty safe sitting around here. We'll see what the choice is here. Give me the fake out onto the Weezing. Can't protect, so gets that one off for free. And the Tauros Raging Bull into the Arcanine. So that will pick up the knockout onto that Arcanine. Remember, it's Intimidate, no Flash Fire or nothing. No. And the Weezing flinch, of course, off the fake out. Does have leftovers, so it'll heal up that damage, but return to knockout for Lucy and a teensy bit of chip. Another question for Lucy, where do you get your damage from? The last two Pokemon are the Whimsicott and the Rillaboom. It's the same four again. Simply just don't have that much damage on this team. Goal might end up being to slow play this as much as possible. Seen 3 of the 4 Pokemon on Lucy's side. Oscar has. The Miraidon, along with the 2 on the field right now. Question is, how do you as Oscar output enough damage to offset the amount of damage that you're taking in these turns? Rillaboom takes damage from the Rocky Helmet off the fake out. Tauros flinches, Weezing gets the Will-O-Wisp off onto the Iron Hands. That'll significantly decrease the damage, have it even. Does still pop off that Ice Punch against Rillaboom. That's some good damage. Iron Hands is Ice Punch, Wild Charge, Rain Punch, and Fake Out. With Assault Vest. Twist to be made for Oscar again. That was after the burn. It still Rillaboom took about half the HP to the Ice Punch. And the Raging Bull might be able to pick it up. Yeah, the Raging Bull going to pick up the knockout onto the Rillaboom. Weezing will get the Will-O-Wisp off onto Tauros, so now both of these physical attackers are burned. But I don't know how much Oscar's going to be able to do in this matchup. No Terra. Has to find a way to get has to find a way to get KOs in this matchup. See the last Pokemon in a moment. It is the Whimsicott. So the only 2 attacking moves here are Moonblast and Acid Spray, which is not ideal if you are Oscar. But we'll see what Oscar decides to do to try to come out of this battle with a victory. At the very least, we'll see a little bit more about what we might get in the next few games. For example, that Moonblast absolutely dumps Tauros. Great damage there, and Tauros is out of the way. Acid Spray onto the Iron Hands does almost nothing. Does drop the special defense, though. The Ice Punch into the Whimsicott, not going to be half damage. Be a little under half. I guess a big question here is, will the Whimsicott be able to threaten the Miraidon again like it did in game number 1? That was the big thing that gave Oscar the win there, and Lucy is not going to give Oscar the opportunity to do that. Going to send out the Landorus here as the 4th Pokemon. Whimsicott will go for the Tailwind. Going to keep the Weezing faster than everything else. Acid Spray onto the Landorus does like no damage, but does drop that special defense. You know how Acid Spray is. Earth Power onto Weezing, that's going to be the knockout. Even without any of the sheer power boosts. Sheer force. Power boot. Whatever. 21 HP left on Whimsicott between Oscar, between Lucy getting this one to a game number 3 and Oscar's just going to send it to a game 3 right now. 1-1 now. Both these players fighting for their tournament lives. Both at 0-1, looking to make that 1-1, trying to work to 3-1 in this 4-round Swiss. Game number 1, the big difference maker was the Whimsicott getting the Moonblast onto the Miraidon. In game number 2, it felt like Lucy had control basically the entire time. Good damage, consistently output, wasn't really taking much damage. And that's a big thing. Even with those 2 physical attackers burned, they were still putting out more damage than Oscar's Pokemon because Galarian Weezing just doesn't do any damage. It's Acid Spray, Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, Protect. Don't do anything. So the question now is, does Oscar want to switch things up? Bring the Zamazenta, bring the Chien-Pao? Or do you want to keep with this strategy with the Weezing? It's a difficult choice to make here. The last 2 games we've seen leads of Weezing and Arcanine for Oscar. We might see things switch up here for Oscar, and we'll see if Lucy decides to switch anything up. We've seen all 4 Pokemon now, actually. The Iron Hands and the Tauros coming last battle. The Whimsicott and the Ogerpon in the first battle. We'll see what Lucy decides to go with here. Anticipating or not anticipating Oscar to switch things up. Game number 3, for all the marbles here in round 2. Gonna be the Miraidon and the Tauros again for Lucy, and on the other end, Whimsicott Chien-Pao. Now, it does mean the Chien-Pao is going to be intimidated. Does have the Sword of Ruin. We'll see if that does enough. It's Ice Spinner, Lash Out, Sacred Sword, Protect with the Terra Stellar. See if it wants to just go for as much damage as possible onto the Miraidon, hoping to pick up the early knockout. It does have Ice Spinner, which will also drop the Electric Terrain, which could be pretty significant. But this could be very much a lose your Chien-Pao situation if it stays in, and a question of whether you whether losing your Chien-Pao is worth whatever you get out of this turn, whether it is dropping the Miraidon entirely or potentially just scaring it a little bit. We do see the Pokemon in the back for Oscar, an interesting set. Going to just be a hard switch out on the Miraidon, and it's going to be the Iron Hand switching in here. Does get the Quark Drive activated, although we know that's not going to last for very long. Tauros will protect, so not going to do any of its very scary stuff that it can do to physical attackers against this Chien-Pao. Instead, Whimsicott gets the Tailwind up for mostly free, and Chien-Pao will use the Ice Spinner, will drop the Electric Terrain, and do, like, no damage to Iron Hands. Chien-Pao probably has got to get out of here now. Does not want to be victim to Fake Out plus Raging Bull. The only question, what does Oscar want to swap into, and to what degree does Lucy read that? Although if you're going to Fake Out this turn, you kind of got to Fake Out that slot because the Covert Cloak will block it on the other end. Weezing comes in. Neutralizing Gas fills the area. Whimsicott goes for the Moonblast onto the Iron Hands. I don't think Tour is going to pick up the knockout there. Will-O-Wisp onto the Weezing, which will do about as much damage as leftover heals, I believe. My memory serves. Ice Punch nearly going to knock out the Whimsicott. Nice read there by Lucy to say, yeah, actually, I don't really care if you keep in Chien-Pao. Nah, it's not even really a read. It's just saying, yeah, if you keep in the Chien-Pao, you're getting burned, you're losing your Focus Sash, and Whimsicott's taking a bunch of damage. So a nice little play there for Lucy. Question is, what does Oscar go for here? Lucy has a number of different options. All of which includes taking down the Whimsicott and doing a bit of damage to the Weezing. me see the Terra here on Lucy's side. I believe that's gotta be the, yeah, Terra Fire Iron Hands. And it's immune to the Will-O-Wisp and also resists the Moonblast. That will encore the Tauros, which is a pretty significant bonus for Oscar, as that locks it into the Will-O-Wisp. Went for another attack into the Weezing, so not going to get anything there. And the Drain Punch potentially reading a Terra or something along those lines, or a switch potentially, because that Drain Punch did no damage to Weezing. Very odd turn there, all things considered. Tauros can go for a Will-O-Wisp into the Whimsicott. It would actually take it down in 2 turns. I think it's certainly an option. Whimsicott will encore the Iron Hands as well, so it's locked into Drain Punch, which we saw does no damage to Weezing. Weezing gets an Acid Spray down onto the Tauros. And Tauros does indeed stay in, use the Will-O-Wisp on the Whimsicott. I believe, yeah, I think it's going to be 2 Burn Chip tags. Oh, and it doesn't matter, Whimsicott's just gonna get punched with the Iron Hands. A tiny bit of healing back. But critically, it does mean that Whimsicott is out and something else has to come back in. And we know that both of those Pokemon are very vulnerable to burns and to Drain Punch, so it will be pretty dangerous for whatever Oscar comes into. And Tailwind is now down. The exact turn that Tailwind went down. So that is rough for Oscar. And that's all without mentioning that Miraidon is still there in the back. What is Chien-Pao's best route out of this one? It doesn't have Sword of Ruin right now. Weezing would need to switch out, and indeed it does switch on out of there. So Neutralizing Gas wears off, Sword of Ruin comes up, Intimidate goes down onto the Chien-Pao. And Weezing, actually, which is very strange. Zamazenta comes in. There it is, gets the Dauntless Shield boost for the first time this game. Sacred Sword onto Tauros, like no damage, and takes the Rocky Helmet chip in return. Tauros with the Will-O-Wisp, it misses the Chien-Pao, that is rough. Drain Punch onto the Chien-Pao though, that will pick up the knockout regardless. So the Will-O-Wisp miss didn't matter all that much. And this puts Lucy in a fantastic spot to close out this game. Tauros ended its encore, but it might put on one more show, so to speak, to burn Zamazenta and close out this game. Iron Hand still with one more Drain Punch in it. Zamazenta going for the Body Press does finish off the Tauros. That is nice to have. But it may be too little too late. We'll see how much this Drain Punch does after it gets hit by Acid Spray. We'll drop the special defense, but that doesn't mean a whole lot in this matchup. Drain Punch into the Zamazenta. Not enough for a knockout, but very, very close. And we are very close to reaching the end of the set here. Oscar down to his final 2 Pokemon. Lucy still with 3 on the board, I believe. Miraidon coming back in now. The opportunity to basically end this one. Could go for... probably the safest option, just Volt switching out on the Zamazenta. Slowly whittling down the Weezing, whatever way possible. getting the Zamazenta there out of there as fast as possible is the crucial thing. It's going to Terastalize, the Terragrass Zamazenta we saw. But will it be enough for Zamazenta? Should not be enough to take the Electro Drift, that's for sure. And there it goes. Zamazenta drops, and this might be it for this one. See how much this Iron Hands is able to do to the Weezing, but not much Weezing can really do about this. The critical hit there on the Acid Spray, dropping the special defense even further. And it's just going to be a couple more turns of Whittle Down before this one closes out. And Oscar knows that and will end it now. Lucy Parker with the 2-1 victory. Real gritty one. That's the thing about some of these Reg G matchups is some matchups you want to play it slow, you want to hide your restricted. Oscar didn't even bring the restricted the first two battles, and finally Lucy was able to close that one out. That'll mean Lucy will move up to 1-1, still with a bit of a chance in this tournament. We will take a quick break, and we will be back with round number 3, getting into crunch time. We're making the later rounds here, so don't go anywhere.